Hey everyone, welcome to a live episode of the Copy Corner with your host, Terry Schilling.
And Dan Marzullo.
Today is a very special episode. We have our very first guest today, who we'll bring on in just a second. But welcome everybody. The Copy Corner is our little corner of the internet where we like to share copywriting, content marketing, digital marketing tips for all the business owners, freelancers, and creatives out there to help grow a business that they enjoy. And let's bring on our guest today, Dan. This is exciting. Our very first time doing this. Can you believe it?
I know. First guest on the Copy Corner. Pretty excited.
Yeah, we're really excited. A friend of ours we've connected on a lot through LinkedIn. She is the managing editor for Marketer Hire. Let's welcome Camille Trent to the show. Camille, how are you?
I'm great. That was quite the introduction, so I hope I live up to it.
Yes, hopefully. She's going to give us 5-word answers, and it's just going to be like, well, Camille's not coming back on the show. Dan, I don't know about that.
No, it'll be 1,000-word answers, and you're going to be like, I'm never bringing this girl back.
No, it's all good. We ramble a lot on this show, but we're excited to have you as our first guest. And to everybody who's watching live, we're on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And yes, the Copy Corner is a podcast too, so if you miss it, you can catch the replay in audio form on wherever you listen to podcasts here after this. But of course, you can always watch the replay on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So if you guys are watching, say hello to us, where you're from. We'll do some Q&A at the end here as well, but we have a couple questions for Camille. But the topic today, we have how to create valuable LinkedIn content with personality, as we've seen. Because Camille, you've been crushing it on LinkedIn. But first, Camille, tell us a little bit, kind of your journey, your origin story of how you got to, become managing editor at Marketer Hire.
Sure. So this is the part that I tend to ramble. So I'm gonna try and keep this concise for you. But
let's do it. Make up a couple parts of the story. It's all good.
Yeah. I'll embed some cool superhero origin story stuff. But basically, when I went to college, didn't know what I wanted to do. I gave a counselor like 3 keywords of basically like writing, art, business. Like I liked something in that realm, which is still pretty broad. And they were like, okay, go look at the advertising department. And so there was an actual like advertising department. And I was like, oh, I love commercials. Like I would love to write jingles, and that's what it is, right? So I'll just do that. And so so I did. I applied to that program, and then they actually had like a copywriting track like within there that you could apply once you got into advertising. So that's kind of, I started out like really niche, I guess. Like most people start pretty broad, and I think it was unique that I kind of had a career path set out from the beginning. And so but it's, that being said, like I pivoted from there. So I thought I was gonna do exactly what I said, like jingles and like B2C, like the fun stuff basically, right? And I did so right out of college, I did like my internship at Martin Agency, which is a really good like brand agency for what are some of the big, like Oreo, they do Oreo and they do Geico, so people know them for that.
Oh, okay, cool.
They're really good, and I was like, this is my dream. Like I just want to do this. But then so that was my internship. Did that for 3 months right out of college, and then my husband was getting his PhD. Actually, he studied infectious disease. Like interesting enough. And so so a little different than what I do. A lot more important. But so that took us to Galveston in Texas. And so so there's not like the mega agencies like in Houston and in the Galveston area, but there are some good shops, but they're just a lot more like B2B focused and like technology focused. And so that's what I ended up doing. Is my first job out of college was a copywriter ad agency there, and it was one of the bigger ad agencies, and it was a lot of corporate enterprise B2B technology work for the most part. And so a lot of that ended up being technical writing, actually. Had to develop some technical writing skills. And I was like much more of a creative writer, right? Like a big idea person. Like a lot of our training was just, how do you come up with that idea? And I guess we can get into how that's helpful with LinkedIn. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got my start is B2B kind of copywriter, and learned a little bit of editing and technical skills there, and just learned a little bit about technology. So I did that for almost 3 years, and then got a little bit what's the right word? I didn't love the commute. I had a really long like commute because we were right in between Galveston and Houston, so that my husband could go to Galveston, I could go to Houston. So there was that, and then because it was like sort of a production agency, like I didn't control distribution at all, right? Like I delivered words, which is great and fine, and I enjoyed that part of it. But then, like toward the end, we started getting a little bit of feedback on things that were working, and that was like really exciting to me. Like I remember hearing that a radio ad helped sell like 8 times more of this product, right? For mechanics or something, and that was like really exciting to me because I usually didn't get that feedback. And so so then I was like thinking about how can I learn more about like the distribution and like how to deliver content, and just more like marketing, right? And so like I owned like a tiny portion of marketing, which was just copywriting, like no design, no development, no marketing, like none of the some strategy, like we helped with positioning and things, but I kind of like wanted to step back since I was so niche. I felt like I needed to like step back, learn marketing, and then I eventually like got back into like copywriting and content writing. So but along the lines, I was also freelancing, right? And so I guess I took another kind of marketing job for like a tourism and like restaurant company like down in Galveston. Like it was a small business. So I had to learn like, you know, what it's like to work in a small business versus like working for enterprises and like working for product managers and stuff. And so that was an interesting shift, and learned some social media skills, like learned how to, you know, build like a basic WordPress stuff and kind of a little bit of local SEO, and then ended up at a bank, which was like a regional B2B bank, like a commercial bank, and again like got to do a little bit of everything there. Like got better at my design skills, got a little better in like my writing skills, but for more like web writing type stuff. And then so around that time, like that was a very like sales led organization, and you know, me and my boss, like we felt really good about LinkedIn and about, you know, thought leadership type content and stuff. And I could feel like some of that working, like even, and this is like the most traditional version of it, but like writing for a paper, helping like our lenders like write thought leadership content, like for, you know, like the local newspaper for like the Chronicle and stuff. And so we did that, and then we'd get like feedback from board members and feedback from customers and stuff that saw it. And so like our audience was reading it and consuming it. And I also had like some campaigns work really well that way. So like a little bit of traditional advertising there that was all on me, like from design to copy to like, let's measure this and stuff. So like a lot of good experience. And then the other big thing I learned there was working for a COO. So like how operationally, like what should we be focusing on, and like efficiencies and how they think through things. And especially in a small business, like you can't just burn money. Like you know where you should know where the dollars are going. And so and even in a big business, you should do that, right? But yeah, so that's kind of so I did that sales led organization. And so, you know, I saw that LinkedIn was like an opportunity, that there was organic reach there. And partly because I saw other people doing it. I knew it was a newer platform for content. And then I was like, I could just see like how it could work well for sales and stuff. But it's one of those things where if you can just go in there and do it, and you can show like the numbers and you can show the engagement, and that's going to be a lot better pitch, right? Than just being like, hey, let's do this, which like never worked in my experience. And so so I think like for me it was like I'll go in, I'll test it, and then I'll be able to I'll be able to show people that it works. I'll be able to understand how it works, if for nothing else, like just for the company page, because I was managing the company page, right? But you know, best case scenario, like we get other people involved. And so that did start happening a little bit toward the end, but a bunch of other things started happening as well, where I just was more introduced to like just to SaaS and to like to startup culture and like all these other things, demand generation. Like just started like learning like crazy just from being in the community. And then I just was like, oh, this is great for my writing. Like I'm learning so much by being forced to write in this way every day, like to write for this platform and to write like for this community, that I was getting like the reps that I need, and that made it enjoyable. And so I just kept doing it.
Yeah. No, that's It's super interesting. Now, what how about like, did they give you a lot of freedom to grow your personal brand on LinkedIn, like yourself, or was that like how much was it creating content for yourself and then for some of the other companies there too that you were working with?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Is that, I mean, I pretty much just did it on my own time unless I was doing something for the company. So, so yeah, so there was definitely flexibility in that, in people noticing, and you know, and once they saw it like working for me, like asking about how they could get involved. Like there was one coworker that joined because she saw like my LinkedIn post and because she saw the company LinkedIn post. And so, you know, so when I was doing work for the company, like that was all through our company page. And then when I was doing my own work, that was my own stuff. And so, so because it was during like COVID, like there was a lot more flexibility in hours, and because of the way that I'd like set up my hours. And so, so they were really awesome and flexible about it. And so that was definitely a big reason, like why I was able to succeed early on, I guess.
Okay, cool. Just real quick, guys, we got some people tuning in on LinkedIn. Juana from Albuquerque, New Mexico, land of enchantment. Awesome. Juana, yeah, she's been on a few times before. Good to see you again. Proloy from India, lead business for a startup, and I post every day on LinkedIn. Awesome. So we're about to get into some fun topics here regarding posting engaging content on LinkedIn here. Dan, do you want to take the next question? What would you like to ask there?
Yeah. So I think, you know, what there's a big debate on like posting with a scheduling tool versus, you know, posting manually. Since you're doing all this content for the company and your personal brand, where do you fall on that scale? Do you like to use a tool like Hootsuite, or are you pretty big on posting manually?
I like posting manually. You know, like once you scale, you might have to change that a little bit. And I've thought about doing that and set those things up. Like I have the ability to do that, and I've tested a little bit, but there are a couple things. Like I know LinkedIn doesn't like automations, right? And
sure,
especially like in the DMs. But I think just in general, there's been some talk like that it can hurt you, like that it knows like somehow coming through Hootsuite. And so there's part of that. And then I just think that like my best stuff is sort of like off the cuff a lot of times. Cool. It's not that you shouldn't plan it. Like, so what I'll do is I'll basically just have, and this is both for company stuff and my own stuff, but like sort of like a running list of things that we can post, and that are especially like evergreen stuff, that it could be, you know, promoting long form content that we have, or it could just be an idea that I have, but it's just kind of like a running list. But it doesn't need to be a certain day. Right. And so, so I have kind of that. And then I just like posting it manually, because another big part of LinkedIn or any social platform is the engagement part. And so especially if it doesn't really help you that much to like plan it, to schedule it out, because you should probably still be there like answering questions, especially on a personal page where you get those questions more often, or you get follow up more often. So I just think like it doesn't really save you that much time, because you're still in the platform. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I've kind of heard that too. Some people say that, you know, using some of these tools, you wonder kind of, does LinkedIn throttling engagement versus posting manually? It'd be kind of interesting to see if you could do some kind of side-by-side comparison on that, right?
Yeah, I should do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Just be curious.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Camille, do you keep like a Google Doc? Do you like keep a notebook by you to like come up with ideas? Like how long does it take from like the idea like to creating it to then actually posting it?
Yeah, so I do have kind of a Google Doc, and I have a Google Keeps like sticky note, I guess, like digital sticky note. So it's kind of messy, like for my personal stuff. It's more organized for company stuff, because we have kind of a calendar that I can just move modules around and stuff. But for me, and something that I think is interesting is when I have a good idea, and a lot of times that comes as the headline, or at least kind of like the topic. And so it's kind of just like a one-liner. And I think what I would tell people is you could post that and it might do well, like things that work well as a tweet, right? Like will probably work pretty well as a LinkedIn post. But I think it's more valuable, depending on your goals, to just keep going on that, right? Like you have a headline, And what I like to do, this is kind of like a basic formula, but headline is your point, and then the next line, which is still part of the LinkedIn preview, as you can see, kind of like 3 lines, right, or 5 lines depending on the device. But the next one is your take on it, right? So it's like point, like my take on it, and then like here's why, and then you get into it. Like that's like a very basic formula that works pretty well, and I do it with some of my content. But I like that because it's the inverted pyramid idea, right? It's like the same thing that work for story, or that work for copy, or that work for journalism. You can apply those same things to LinkedIn. It's just like what I'm getting into, and then like what what your interesting take is on it. Like, why is this something that I haven't already read? And then like break it down into like, here's the evidence for that, and then it's just like a basic argument. And that's the post. So I like that because it shows authority. Like if you're going deeper, and this is what I like about LinkedIn, is the posts are longer, they can get longer. And so then you can back it up like with authority, like either sources or your experiences. But if you just stop at the first line, and it's not like I never do those, I have some of those posts as well. But if you stop at that, you're not establishing yourself as an authority, or you're not being known for that thing. Like it's a little bit like clickbait without the answer, right? And so I think people say clickbait is fine as long as you deliver on that. And so I think that you kind of like leave something to be desired if you stop at that, and you're sort of doing yourself like a disfavor, disfavor if you stop there. So that's just what I found.
No, I mean, I learned that, being a journalism major, just of like, kind of like, if it bleeds, it leads type of like mentality, where you say the lead at the top, and then you just kind of break down about how you got there. It's like, old man ran a car into a post office. It's like, okay, which is a true story. Saw that happen. And then you just break down exactly how it happened. But like yours is a little bit more like valuable posting to it. Like you said, have the main point, and then have like the original take. And I think that's where people like miss the mark a lot, is like, not necessarily having an original take, or just spitting out theories and not necessarily giving examples of how something could work as well, just from what I've seen.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing that I talk about is you're able to serve 2 audiences that way, right? Like you can serve like the skimmer that was never going to read the whole post anyways, but maybe they still learn something. Like sort of challenge yourself to like, how can I teach something in literally like 5 to 10 seconds? You know what I mean? Like how can I like share at least what I think on something, or give like a little tip. So the other day, like I had one that was basically like, do a final edit on your phone, like before you publish content, like especially long form blog content. So that like shows up like in the first like 2 lines, right, of like copy tip number 1. So like if you're if you work in copy, if you work in marketing, this is for you. That's kind of what it's signaling. And then second line is like, do a second edit on your phone, and you'll catch things that you wouldn't catch otherwise, like readability. So you know what I mean. So that shows that. But then I might go into, I don't know if I did for this post, but I might go into a little detail of why, right? Of like, I think I did actually. You'll see like where you can put extra graphics, or you'll see where you can do pull quotes and stuff. Like you'll just see other things that you would otherwise miss. So that's an example.
Yeah. Just a quick follow-up to this, you're going into a lot of kind of your strategy here, Camille. What was it like when you started, and then how much has it changed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thing that I tell people, and I did this a little bit, and I would do it more if I were to do it again, is just be in the community. Like just see, for instance, if you're trying to talk to marketers, which I think like we all are, or copywriters. Then see who they're already engaging with, see like what content that they like. Like you don't have to start from ground zero. If you're just in the community, you're seeing like what people like, you're engaging with them like as a peer. And I think the way that you do that is you can just comment on posts. Like I think this is kind of like a underrated strategy of just, it's intimidating to just like, okay, like just start posting stuff to the world. And so I think if you just you start with just comments, right? Or you start with engaging with people, you reach out to people that are interesting to you. Like that's what makes it fun, because it's like personal, and you're talking to people that you just want to talk to, right? Or that you know you can learn something from. So I did a lot of that, like when someone clearly knew something that I didn't, or was like deeper into something than I thought that I would just reach out to them and have a conversation, set up a call, or even before that, I would just recommend like, commenting on their stuff. And that's a chance for you to just like ask questions. It's like a Q&A format, basically. Like,
right.
So you can ask questions, you can put in like your 2 cents about it. And these are basically opportunities, especially with an influencer, like opportunities for you to like use their network, like to a degree, right? Like they have like this massive, following or audience and stuff, and your stuff might also be interesting to the audience. And so if you comment, then, I've gotten people send connection requests after that, because they're like, oh, I liked your comment. They'll even like put a message like, I liked your comment on so-and-so's piece, right? And so it does a couple things. Like it does all that networking stuff, and helps you understand what the type of content that they want to hear about. But then it also validates like your post. Like it's basically a mini like sampler version like of a post, right? So you can post something and it can get like 50 likes or whatever. Like that's extreme, but it can get like a lot of engagement, and that can signal to you, oh, I should go deeper on this. Like I should write like a whole post on
this idea. Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah. No, yeah. I think like if you like search, like even like you said with marketers and like maybe influencers in the space on LinkedIn, like if that have a ton of comments and you comment, like people are obviously scrolling, reading through that. I think that's a very like low-key like underrated strategy for a lot of people, instead of posting it just for yourself, but like get involved in that community. I really like that approach. Yeah, I think what you just said is cool, because thinking about it like a community, I think not everyone does that. I think there's like, this is just another social media platform, which it is, but it's also whatever you make it out to be, right? Like you can create communities anywhere, like in any platform. Absolutely. There's some that lend itself better to it. But I think you're right. Like there's a lot of engagement that happens in the comments. And so just taking advantage of that is smart. Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of engagement then, Camille, do you guys spend a whole lot of time focusing on, types of content that you post that you see gets more traction versus not? Like I know a lot of people talk about, the long form text-based posts first, adding a website link and pictures and videos. I mean, do you guys vary your strategy with that or play with that much?
Yeah, I think that we do. So again, like I think it's starting with, what are people showing interest in? And they're showing interest by liking and engaging, whatever else. Like there are stronger comments, that are basically like, I really like when I say something like, I really like this, or like, thank you so much for posting this, or like, I'd never thought about it this way, then that's interesting. And then, so I've heard, and I think this works well, people saying, okay, I'll post some stuff for broad appeal, right? So like kind of like audience building stuff that's like more broad and that like people are gonna agree with. And then there's also like the very like niche stuff of like, we own like this very, very small piece like of the market, and we can speak like really intelligently about this, but it's not going to appeal to as many people because it's a smaller portion of the market. So I think that's a pretty smart way of going about it, of like, I would say things like GIFs, memes, stuff like that, like can go viral like easier, right? Like it's more like broad appeal. Like even people, I've noticed when I post that kind of stuff that like even people that aren't in marketing or aren't like very like tight in with that specific title of like CMO or whatever it is, will still like it because they're like, oh, this is a funny idea. Like I know a marketer and this is true. And you know what I mean? And so I think, memes and GIFs like are kind of that like, oh, this is so true. Like this like hits like right here. And that is like fun, like good content. But then again, like it's about going deeper, like what else can you bring to the table? So even with, even with like memes, I think of that as like, that's like the attention grabber, that's like the hook. And then That's easy. Like what's hard, I think, is like creating demand from that. And I think you do that by showing expertise. And so that's why I like to, whatever style of post it is, I typically like to have like a longer, like use up that whole like I think it's 1,200 or 1,300 characters, right? Like I almost use up all of that because it's just like an opportunity to do so. So yeah, I've played around with different styles, and I'm surprised, like some of the times, like I would think for me, since I'm a writer, that people would only want to see my writing, right? And I don't think I'm like a great speaker. I'm like not that great on camera, as you're noticing right now. But but people are interested like in video. Like I had seen other people do it well. Like I'd seen it work really well, but I was still like, it's not really for me, you know, like, and it's uncomfortable. It takes longer editing, but I was still like, I need to test everything. And so I started doing like a little bit of video, and it's like shocking, like how much better like the engagement is, or just being able to like put a face to the writing and a personality to the writing. I think I see it for me. Like I see that I have a stronger connection with people that do video. And so I was like, I need to, as a marketer, like I need to experiment with it. And I saw like three times like the engagement, like the views are going to be lower, but the engagement is like typically going to be higher. And so I think that's why it's a balance, right? Like it would be really hard to just start with video, like to just like get an audience built and just get some traction like with just video. I think you could do it, but I think that's like an argument for text too, because that stuff gets them the most views, typically, like the most reach. And so it's like anything, like balancing out like reach and depth, I guess.
Yeah, right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like Carousel's been doing really well for me lately. But like, it's just, I think like the biggest thing with the LinkedIn algorithm, and I don't do much like looking into it per se, but it just seems like when you get people to comment on your post, like that's the really big key thing is when people are commenting, because then it just shows up in the feeds. Like if a lot of people follow Dan, he commented on my post or vice versa, you know, it's like his comment will show up in their feed, and then and then people will see your post again and again. But like I've seen like sharing like a post that I'm like tagged in gets like no traction unless unless people comment on that.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I feel like it comes and goes. Some videos, you know, do well, some don't, but I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's just like keep creating and just create good stuff at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like that really is it. Right. And a lot of the times, like, the hook, again, like the attention, some sort of attention grabber, like gets people into the content. And that is typically why it gets like a better reach, and people are just like more likely to comment on it because it's just fun, interesting content. And they're like, this is totally me. And they'll tag friends and stuff because it's so relatable. So I think like there's a couple different types of content, but that one is kind of this is me, like I feel like seen, like this is super relatable. And then there's other stuff that's like more of the educational content. And so that's kind of a little bit how I view it, of like, let's try and like balance out like the deep, like educational content with the fun, relatable, I'm a human being content. So obviously, you know, you should try and do both. Like your educational content shouldn't just be like straight facts either. Like you should have some personality in that. But I think having like that balance helps you achieve like audience growth, but also depth. And so.
Yeah, it's just like kind of like the marketing, like, if you will, formula of like people get to know you, then they start to like you, and then they'll begin to trust you at the end of the day. And I think like mixing it up with video and things like that, you know, definitely make it relatable. Juana said, video is a big deal, less engagement, but longer dwell time past 3 seconds. You guys like bring up a good point, because sometimes obviously, you know, the ego in us when posting content, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but like if you post a video, or like if Dan and I post a video of this and it's like, it only gets like 400 views, but then we have like 40 comments or something, I that's just where like the key is there. It's just like, and then like showing up and engaging back with them, you know, on those comments. Cause like you said, the engagement is still high for a lot of videos. You just might not have as many views as you see on like text posts.
Yeah. Well, and I think it always to me like comes back to quality over quantity, right? And people say that quantity begets quality, right? Like, and you have to throw up enough shots like for them to go in. And so that's part of it, but there is like another part of like, I would rather, and this is, I don't know, this is just more where I skew. I would rather spend like a little bit more time to like make sure something is good, or to have like a pretty good understanding that this is going to work, than just throw up a bunch of stuff and just like hope that something sticks, you know? Like I just think more toward that like way of thinking. And I think, you know, once you do it enough, you have a feel for like what is going to work too. And so
absolutely,
that's part of it too, is that like, that's part of the argument for quantity, right? Is just like I think it's more just like be in the community. Like you don't always have to like be throwing stuff out there. Like you just need to be like engaging. And I think the more that you engage and the more that you understand your audience, like the better it's going to be, because you just are in it. Like you start thinking like, and it's kind of like, it's just marketing 101. But what I've sort of is like method marketing, right? Like where you're like a method actor and you're like getting into it, and you just understand like the needs, and you just try and deliver on that. Like what you anticipate the questions, or you see the questions and you deliver on that, rather than just like, how can I get a customer? And the other thing, but right before I forget, is with that quality and quantity thing. It's like, would you rather have a video post that you know, gets seen by 500 people, but you get one customer from it? Or would you rather have like a viral, you know, LinkedIn post that gets like 50,000 people looking at it, but no customers? So it really just depends on your goals, right? But I think most people, they'll get distracted because ego and because vanity metrics and stuff. But if your goal is to be known for a certain thing, you know, or to get customers, then you're better off going deep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's wrap up here, Dan. Let's one more question each for us. I'll start, because it's just like keeping on the topic, because we talked about just like engaging post and getting people to comment. What are some of your best tips for calls to actions and actually getting people, you know, to leave a comment, instead of just like, what do you think, or what are your thoughts? Do you have like other like best practices for that?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, because I don't always, I don't typically like have calls to actions on my post, and maybe I would have higher engagement if I did. But my thoughts on this are basically, start with a conversation starter. So I think like a really simple formula for people is a question. So, you know, it can be at the beginning, it can be at the end, but like getting people thinking about the subject in a different way. And I just think of it as like, what's a good conversation starter? So, you know, I've had some posts that are like, would you rather? Like a would you rather is a good conversation starter. That's like a party question. And so, you know, thinking about like how you would talk to someone in real life to get them talking, right? Or to get them engaged. And it's not that much different from LinkedIn. So I think about it more as like, in the headline, but a headline question or a conversation starter of like, and another way, I guess, is that I'll be like, okay, this is how I think on the subject. Like, this is what I think a growth marketer is. Like, what about you? Like, what do you think it is? You know, so you can just end with a question, or like, but it's just like a little bit more of a recap of what you just said, and an actual question rather than like thoughts or agree. Like those are fine, and those can work. Like you can get tons of engagement that way. But for me, like, it's always about making it easier for the reader, for the audience. And I think if you can just recap like what you just said, especially if I took a long time to say it, and then be like, what, you know, what's your take on this, or but actually say it, like say, you know, what do you think a growth marketer is, or whatever.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No, and I've seen stuff, and I feel like maybe Dan, you and I have like practiced it before, of just like, maybe you too, Camille, is like reply with hashtag XYZ. You know, I've seen like Eddie Schlaner do this with like, do hashtag marketing, and then he'll send you a DM, and he just gets tons of comments that way. But again, he knows like, again, all those comments help, you know, the feed, you know, the algorithm just show your post up in the feed. So that's another way to do that too.
Yeah, like having a resource that you're distributing, right? Of being like, hey, I have this free resource, and you essentially use the post as like a sales page of like, here's everything that you're going to get in this resource, and then people really get that. And I've like certainly commented to be like, yeah, like so that resource, and then that person, more people see it, like, so that's an easy way to do it too. And then I've seen like caption content, right? Like that's
a good one too. Yeah.
That's an easy way to just get comments. So these are like a little bit, this isn't a bad thing, but these are a little bit more of like hacks, I guess. Like they're like easy.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it's a great way to like build community, right? And to build engagement. These are the same things that people are doing in like Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Or like, I think right now, the big hot thing on LinkedIn is the polls, right? I heard somebody the other day, they did a poll and they were like, when is this poll-apocalypse going to end? And it's like, so yeah, that's another way you can see how that affects it and how it grows.
Yeah. Like community builders, like they're great community builders.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I think to wrap it up, I think my last question here, a good takeaway for everybody would be, what's your best advice for somebody that's just starting to build a personal brand on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I think going back to what I said before, but just commenting, right? Like just being in the community, commenting, reaching out to people that you can learn from. Like I've reached out to a bunch of things, and I think again it's just realizing that you don't know everything, and really like being there for, not to sound like a reality TV show, but like being there for the right reasons. Instead of just it's easy to get caught up in like the hamster wheel of like either creating content or like trying to go viral or whatever it is. But like, again, like one customer or one like deep engagement, like with someone, I think is more valuable than just like the vanity stuff. So I can also I'll go through these real fast because I jotted these down, but some things that I've seen like are working well is like a series. So if you're a copywriter, you could have 10 copy tips, but you maybe, let's say it's like 14, so you can do it over 2 weeks of like copy tip number 1, copy tip number 2, and so it shows people, like it gives people a reason to come back like to your content, because they're like, no, it's like a sequence. There's 3, then there's probably a 4. And so so a serial kind of posts, stories. So obviously storytelling works everywhere, but storytelling, especially with dialogue at the beginning, just to drop someone into the story. And then how-tos. So just a basic like how to write a blog post, how to write a LinkedIn post. Resources like we talked about. So like comment to get this resource, or here are the top 10 courses, like digital marketing courses. I think I did something like that one time. People like that. And like there's a few of them, but I'll just kind of rattle them off. So motivational, personal development, video, just in general works well. Teardowns. So this is like another really easy place for someone to start, is like, if you can just think analytically, or like think critically, I guess, about things, then you can create lots of different content. It just like takes some time. So, one of the first things that I did, and I remember thinking like, all right, fine. Like I remember like, I might have even said out loud, like, all right, fine. Like I'll create good content because I think like, people know what it is, but they just like don't want to put the time in, or they can't think of like an easier version of that, which would give them like the same benefits. And it's a little bit about just doing it a lot. But this first one that I did was like, there were 3 LinkedIn company pages that I thought were really, really good, or that I was following. And I was like, I don't engage with companies, but I engage with some of these ones, and here's why. And so then I had kind of like the 3 pages, and then like I used like the same formula for each of them of like, what's the overlap between them, and like headers, like they're all doing this, and call to actions or whatever, they're all doing this, and like style, or you know what I mean. And so I graded them all on like the same criteria, I guess, and that did really well. And so I was like, oh, like this is like this, like I don't know, I was just like, this is like what you have to do, or like you have to like bring some level of education or whatever, depending on your audience. Like the more advanced your audience is that you're trying to attract, like probably the more work you're going to have to put in, because they know a lot of the stuff. And so and so like the easier that you can make someone's life by doing kind of like that grunt work sometimes, or it can feel like that, of like getting in there and breaking it down. Yeah, then they really appreciate that, because they're like, oh, I really wanted this information, but I was never going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, do the work for someone that you would want done to you. Like, it's just like the golden rule.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome advice. We did have a couple questions here, guys, too. This is an interesting conversation from Ryan Lay, who dropped by. What's up, Ryan? So unfortunately, we the creators don't get to decide what works, goes viral. It's the market that decides. Great point. Obviously, yeah, personally, I don't spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what works. I guess I just think it's just like kind of like my take on that is just depends what you think about, like how you define what works. It's like, is what works going viral? Is what works maybe that one post that gets you a sale? I mean,
Right.
like what work, you can measure it by engagement and things like that. But I think what you've talked about, Camille, is just like creating quality content. But how would you define like what works per se?
Yeah. So first off, I love this question, because I talk about this a lot of like, I think one thing that I say is that your audience is your best editor too, right? Like your audience, like he's right. Like your audience decides what's good. And so I think knowing that, like if I were to start from the beginning or even like improve what I'm doing now, how I think about it is define what's good for your audience, like figure out how your audience defines good, rather than like just throwing things out there. And so, yeah, so again, like you can see like what people are engaging with, what questions that they're asking. And it's not about, I think people mishear this and they think, oh, I'm just going to look at what other influencers are doing and I'm just going to like copy their post formula. But it's not so much that. It's like, what are they talking about? Like what questions are they answering, and are they answering them in the most concise, like easy to understand way? And so yeah, so I think he's right. Like don't spend like too much time on like virality or and this like perfect, like scientific equation. I find that like if I get too much caught up into like that formula, then it just doesn't do as well, because I'm not being like authentic about it. And I'm not like being as focused on the audience. Like I'm just trying to force something, you know what I mean? Right. And so that's where I start, is like find out how your audience defines good. And that's your baseline.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great question, Ryan. And then last one here, I've read about lurkers having a lot of power on LinkedIn. Can Camille comment on this at all?
I'm trying to understand the question. Like what?
I'm not sure. Juana, if you're still listening, if you could just elaborate a little bit more. I've read about lurkers. Does that just mean like people commenting all the time? Maybe like bots commenting on that just have a lot of power?
I think like the way that I interpret it, and I could be totally wrong about this, but this is how I'll answer it, is there are a lot of people that are seeing your content, like that are lurking, I guess, that are seeing your content and that feel engaged with your content, even though they're not physically liking or commenting on it. Does that make sense? Like I've noticed a lot of people, a lot of the times, especially when I was freelancing, the people that would reach out, I'd never seen them, heard from them, but yeah, they were still like consuming their content. Like they felt like they knew me, but I didn't know them because they hadn't commented or they hadn't done anything. So I think maybe that's.
Yeah, she commented. Lurkers are the ones. Yeah, so it's kind of like the people who are like, I'm gonna reach out to you when I'm ready.
Yeah, exactly. Just because you're not getting like that engagement, or you don't feel like you're getting that engagement, like doesn't mean you're not doing something right.
Yeah. No, I agree. We've had. Go ahead, Terry.
No, I was just gonna ask you a question, follow up on it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say, to kind of follow up on that, it's like, we've had clients reach out to us in the past on LinkedIn that say, hey, Dan, we've seen your content for months. You're always in my feed. And now we finally need you. So now I'm going to, start that conversation. And it's like, oh, gosh, I didn't even remember we were connected, right? I haven't seen you or talked to you in a year. So it's, the content still has the power to more than the people that aren't, commenting and liking regularly and all that stuff, engaging.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you on, is just because I know you guys with your company and your personal brand, Dan, you've got to create a lot of videos. That's how you and I got connected.
Right.
And just kind of your experience of that, but I think that just goes to show is just like, if people are shy about creating content, I'm like, look, Like all it takes is just like one person, like when they're ready to reach out to you, but you got to like consistently, create some stuff, just like have other metrics. Find, does it give you like, do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy meeting all these people? Like, you said, embrace the community element of it. Like, do you enjoy meeting new like marketers, people in your industry, learning from them? And then you can just start get comfortable, add some value. And then, people will reach out to you potentially, to work with you as well.
Right.
Yeah. I think maybe like the thing that I'll like sort of end on is like, you have to like find a way to like it, or just don't do it. Like if you don't like it.
Exactly.
But I think like, it's like anything, you can kind of like gamify it, or you can kind of, find the thing that you do like about it and double down on that, like rather than it just being a job. And I think if it's a job, like you'll burn out. And there's been like several times that I've like burnt out or almost burnt out. And so I think, again, like thinking about it, for me, it's like, okay, this is a writing exercise that I'm going to try and do like every day, or at least like every other day. And it also helps me understand the audience. Like it's a way for me to like engage in the audience, which I think is like a must, like for marketers. And so if I think about it that way, of like, it's an investment like in my skills and in the community, like in meeting other people. And again, like that boosts my skills just from learning from other people. Then that can be it, like it doesn't have to be like, I have to get this many views, or I have to get like a customer. Like do it so that you understand the platform better, or you have another marketing skill, or so you're practicing writing. And then it takes like the pressure off, and you just don't take it as seriously. And I think another thing that I tell people is, like nobody cares. Like nobody cares that much like about my social content, about anyone's social content. I'm not like I love like some people's like posts and their content, and there's like podcasts that I listen to religiously, but at the end of the day, like we will survive like without it. And so I think for me, that's like, it sounds harsh, but it's actually really liberating for me, of like, oh, like nobody's gonna care. Like if I miss one day, or if this isn't like up to my typical standard.
Yeah, absolutely. It's healthy. Like, if you feel burned out, it's okay to just take a couple breaks from social media and not post anything. So I think like with Dan and I, it's like we posted a lot, but like this Copy Corner thing that we started like almost a little over a year and a half ago, whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's a way where like we show up Monday, and we do it, and we have a piece of content for the week, and we can like repurpose it into everything, And so it's like, also like, don't be afraid to ask people to collaborate on projects either.
Yeah, exactly. Like think of it as like making friends. And you made a good point of like repurposing. Like don't feel like, since you already said something, you can't say it again, right? Or like you can't like take a clip like of that thing. Like we have this like mindset of like, we have to be creative all the time, especially as like copywriters, and we have to be like original, and we have to, like we have to do everything from scratch, like to feel like validated, or to feel like I don't even know, but I think just knowing that you can repurpose content, and that you should repurpose content, like it's not cheating. Like it's your content. You can just keep distributing it, and also not everyone saw it the first time. So so that's another tip for
exactly. We could turn this into like 5 videos and like 18 tweets. This whole
12 audiograms, 3 quote cards.
Absolutely. Well, this was great, Camille. Thank you so much for taking the time. And people used to the Copy Corner, we do this in 10 minutes or less. Obviously, this was a long form interview, but hey, we're all about it. We would love to expand the show and have it evolve, and we're going to bring on some more guests. So Camille, we're really happy that you were the first one. Stop by.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
All right, everybody. Well, stay tuned. Again, we probably will turn this into a couple clips, but again, you guys can watch the replay of this live stream on LinkedIn and on YouTube. But also the Copy Corner podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, we're there. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching this episode of the Copy Corner, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.